Hello, History 1 students. This is Mrs. Politsky, and I have your notes for Chapter 11, Section 3. We're going to talk about the Holocaust. So, who did the Nazis oppose? Well, I think you probably remember through some of your discussions, maybe in your English classes, that Jews, disabled people that would be either mentally disabled or physically disabled, gypsies, homosexuals, Slavic people. This would be people who would be like from Poland or parts of Czechoslovakia or parts of Hungary, Romania. Afro Germans, these are people that would be mixed raced, meaning that they were part African, part German. Communist, people who are Jehovah Witnesses, and political opponents. These would be anyone who would be anti Nazi. And this could be real, meaning that they have actually taken a stand politically against the Nazis, or people who are perceived to be political opponents. And that sometimes cross the lines when we talk about religion. Priests and nuns who spoke out against the atrocities of the Nazis were considered to be political opponents. So all of these people, for the most part, had a target on their back. And so we're going to talk primarily about Nazi persecution of the Jews. And when we talk about the term Holocaust, it's sometimes referred to as the Shoah, which is a Hebrew word which means catastrophe. German government officials stripped many Jews of their rights, including their right to citizenship, which made it almost impossible to leave Germany. Just so you understand, there were Americans here in the United States who were Jewish or anti fascist, who were very upset with what was happening in Germany and the treatment of Jews, and wanted our president to take a firm stand against fascism and Nazi Germany in general. I will say this President Roosevelt kind of walked a very thin line, and part of it being the fact that there was legislation on our books, laws that he had to deal with, that made it really difficult for him to openly protect some of the Jews who were being persecuted by the Nazis. In September of 1935, the Nazis passed what is known as the Nuremberg Law, which took citizenship away from German Jews. It also banned marriages between Jews and other Germans, so like mixed marriages. So this photo here in the middle, our couple here, is according to the Nazis, a mixed couple. She is a German woman, he is Jewish, and they have been caught in a relationship, and now the Nazis are making an example of them. As time would pass, Jews began to lose their freedom of movement and also their property rights. Many Jews were forced into ghettos and then eventually were sent on to concentration camps. In 1936, many Jews were jobless because they had lost their right to work and pretty much all of the professions that were out there. By 1938, half of Germany's Jews were unemployed. What you see here, kind of off to the sides, are some German made charts. One on the left hand side is talking about when we talk about people's kind of heritage, ethnicity. The Nuremberg laws was trying to determine, like, how, if you are part Jewish, how much Jewish are you? And if you had like that in your ancestry, would that put you into a group of people who would be persecuted against? On the right hand side is a chart kind of showing what would be the correct look of a German. And these posters were put up in classrooms to kind of show kids, what is considered to be the authentic German look. So, Nuremberg laws, again, they took away citizenship for the Jews. It defined a Jew as a person with at least one Jewish grandparent. It barred Jews from holding public office or even voting, compelled Jews with German sounding names to adopt a Jewish name. And when you talk about passports, uh, if you were Jewish, your passport was going to be marked with a red J, identifying you as a Jew and making it almost impossible to leave the country. I've got a picture here, kind of a well known painting known as The Woman in Gold. It was painted by a man named Gustav Klimt, and it's a portrait of a Jewish woman named Adele Bloch Bauer. It happened to be stolen by the Nazis in 1941, and it was uh, kind of floating around in some of the different art circles. And in 2006, it was eventually returned back to the family. I believe it had been placed in a gallery in the United States, but it was one of these works of art that had been looted by the Nazis when they kind of forced people into concentration camps. They kind of went through and stole, anything of value from the Jews' homes and whatnot. This painting went to auction in 2007, sold for $135 million, and that money went back to the family of this woman. But at the same time, it took them years to find it. And this is just one example of property that still is out there that is basically unclaimed, or its locality unknown. The Nazis, they used anti Semitic propaganda to scapegoat Jews for the problems confronting Germany. An event known as Kristallnacht, the Night of Broken Glass, refers to the anti Jewish violence that erupted throughout Germany and Austria on November 9th, 1938. And these attacks were pretty much against Jews organized by Nazis as a response of a murder of a German diplomat that was in Paris by a man who was Jewish, who was angered by the fact that his father had been sent to a concentration camp. Following this night of violence, the government, secret police, the Gestapo, um, arrested at least 30,000 wealthy Jews, and many of them were sent to either the ghettos or the concentration camps. You can kind of see the photo in the middle. This is a picture of a synagogue that was set on fire as a result of some of the violence that night. The man, Herschel Greibrants Spahn, he was a Polish Jew who was in Paris who happened to shoot Ernst von Roth, who was the German diplomat. And as a result of this murder, Hitler ordered his propaganda minister, Joseph Goebbels, to organize these attacks. And in a way, they tried to do it in such a way to make it look like civilians were upset. But for the most part, these were pretty much German Nazis in street clothes, uh, trying to make it look like it was like a, you know, kind of a impromptu reaction to the story when it was a choreographed act of violence by the Nazi party themselves. So between 1933 and 1939, some 350,000 Jews tried to leave Germany, including prominent scientists, business owners. The man that you see kind of in the middle, our friend Albert Einstein, was one of those who was able to get out. Uh, the problem that we had here in the United States was that a lot of countries, including us, use quotas, and German Jews were primarily turned away from this country because of our, we were in the Depression, the unemployment numbers were high, and there was in this country a sentiment of anti Semitism. Jews were prohibited from leaving Germany with more than $4 in their pocket, and that made it really hard for them to escape. The SS St. Louis was a ship that was basically hired by many German or Jewish families to get out of Germany. And they sailed across the Atlantic to go to Cuba in 1939 with the hope of settling there. When they get to Havana, they're denied entry. And so the ship slowly sails towards Florida, and the U.S. government denies them an opportunity to dock and to stay. And so the ship is sent back to Europe. Many of these passengers were dispersed into other countries like France and the Netherlands and England. But if they were on in France and the Netherlands, there was a pretty good chance that they ended up in a concentration camp or died in a death camp before the end of the war. The final solution, this was actually coined in January 1942 by Nazi leaders at the Wannsee Conference. And the idea was to determine the final solution of the Jews. The Nazis had planned to move Jews from vast areas of Western Europe to detention centers or concentration camps in Eastern Europe. So if you look at the map, there's all these little dots. The blue dots are kind of concentration camps. The red dots um, basically are what we would call death camps. And if you were healthy, you would probably be worked in a concentration camp as slave labor. And if you were, basically weak, you would have been sent to a death camp to be exterminated. So the conference itself met for to determine the final solution, had plans to round up Jews from Nazi occupied or controlled areas of Europe, healthy individuals sent to work, young, elderly, infirmed individuals sent to extermination camps. So, our young, elderly, and infirmed being sent to extermination camps, sometimes these were known as death camps. They had massive gas chambers that were used to murder our prisoners. Some of these camps were located in countries like Poland. An estimated 1.6 million people, mostly Jews, died at a place called Auschwitz, probably one of the more notorious extermination camps that was in Poland. In all, Germany killed an estimated 6 million Jews and another 6 million political prisoners. So, roughly 12 million people died at the hands of the Nazis during this period of time. When we talk about the gas chambers, a lot of times they use what look like mock showers, and they would put in gas, which are basically fertilizer pellets. This is known as Cyclone B, which was used to basically asphyxiate the people that were within those showers. And then once the bodies were kind of gone through looking for gold or any other trinkets, the bodies would be sent to the crematoria or the furnaces to be burnt, cremated. Thank you very much.